Nehemiah Lesson 4. The wall is completed.
Our lesson today is from Nehemiah 5 and 6. We will hear about the money problems that stop the work on the wall. We will learn about 3 attempts by Sanballat and Tobiah to stop the work on the wall. We will hear what happens as the wall is completed. But first, let's listen as Rachel talks to her teacher about her money problems.
Hi, Rachel. How was your week?
My week was full of problems.
What happened?
I have money problems.
What kind of money problems?
I don't have enough money. That's a problem.
What do you need money for?
Everything.
Are you in danger of starving to death?
No.
Are you in danger of losing your home and having to sleep in a tent?
No.
Well, then I would say you don't really have money problems. You just have a problem with wanting too much.
I don't have enough money for the things I want. That's a huge problem.
Well, listen to our lesson today, and you will soon find out that your problem isn't really all that huge.
Will listening to the lesson make my money problems go away?
Yes, it will. You will realize how good you have it, so your money problems won't seem like a problem anymore.
I love it when we solve problems.
Last time, our lesson in Nehemiah 4 ended on a note of great victory. The people had been discouraged and were ready to give up, but threats of attack had come, and the people realized Jerusalem was worth fighting for. They made a plan to be ready for the attack, and the enemies decided not to attack. Now the people in Jerusalem worked while holding a weapon in one hand. They were always ready to fight. They even slept in their clothes. Our lesson today starts in Nehemiah chapter 5, where something totally unexpected takes place. In this entire chapter, there is no mention of anyone working on the wall, leading us to guess that work on the wall has probably stopped. What do you suppose could have stopped this work? Do you think maybe an earthquake? Or a big downpour of rain? Or extreme heat? Or insects? Or threats? Or danger has stopped the work on the wall? The work on the wall stopped because there were arguments between the workers. God's people were no longer working together, they were arguing with each other. What were they arguing about? Money problems. The people had money problems because they worked such long hours on the wall that they did not have time to earn money to meet the needs of their families. They had money problems because of a famine. The price of food had increased, and some could not afford to feed their families anymore. They had money problems because of the king's tax. They had to pay taxes to the Persian government, even though they had no money coming in. Because of their money problems, some families had borrowed money in order to pay their expenses and could not pay back the loan. Some of them had given up their children as servants to the lenders to pay off their loan. The rich were taking advantage of the crisis and were making a lot of money off of the poor. They were lending money to the poor and were charging a high interest rate. Here's an example. Imagine there's a boy named Levi that lived with his parents back in 444 BC. Levi's dad doesn't have any money to buy food for his family. He doesn't want his family to starve, so he goes to a wealthy nobleman and explains his situation. The nobleman says to him, "Oh, I have a great solution to your problem. I will lend you $500. You can pay it back any time you want, but on the first Sunday of every month, if you can't pay back the $500, you must give me $5 as an interest payment. And if you can't pay the interest, then you must give me one of your children who will be my servant until you can pay me back." Levi's dad doesn't like this arrangement, but he agrees to it because he doesn't want his family to starve to death. This interest payment was called a hundredth part, which was paid every month. We would call this a 1% per month or 12% annual rate of interest, which is a high rate of interest even in our day. A few months go by, and Levi's dad has been busy working on the wall and has not had any time to earn any money. Eventually, Levi's dad and mom spend all of the $500 and they have no more money. The next thing you know, it's the first Sunday of the month. The nobleman comes to Levi's dad and says, "Do you have some money for me? The $5 interest payment is due today." Levi's dad looks very sad. "I sure wish I had $5 to give you, but I've been building the walls of Jerusalem during the day, and I have to sleep with my clothes on inside the city at night. I don't have any time to go harvest grain, and with this famine there isn't much grain to harvest. I'll try to give you a double interest payment of $10 next month." The nobleman's face looks angry as he snarls, "Did you forget our agreement? You must give me one of your children to be my servant until you can pay my money back. Bring Levi to my house by the end of the day. He will be my servant until you pay all my money back. He will be your interest payment." Sadly, Levi's mom and dad pack up Levi's things and take him over to the nobleman's house. Before walking into the house, Levi says bravely, "Don't worry, Mom and Dad. I will work hard to be a good servant to this nobleman so that our family will not starve. I will do my part to help our family so that my dad can continue to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem." The names of this story were made up, but this is actually what was happening to God's people in Jerusalem. Families were being pulled apart because the rich were taking advantage of the poor. Some rich people were taking not only family members to be their servants, but also taking ownership of poor people's croplands, vineyards, and olive trees. When Nehemiah heard about this, he was not just angry. The Bible tells us that Nehemiah was very angry. Nehemiah 5:6 says, "And I became very angry when I heard their outcry and these words." Nehemiah became very angry because of the greediness of the rich people who were trying to make money off of other people's troubles. Interest that was too high, or interest that should not have been charged at all, was called usury. The law of Moses clearly said that usury was wrong in Exodus 22:25. The charging of interest had led to a lack of unity among God's people, and that unity was more precious than any amount of money. Nehemiah was angry about the situation, but he took time to think about it before he did anything. After serious thought, Nehemiah faced the situation head-on and went to the noblemen and rulers. He talked to them and pointed out that what they were doing was wrong. It was God's plan that if someone needed money for the most basic needs of life, they should be given help, not loaned money with interest. Nehemiah reminded them that it was wrong for some Jews to be forced to be slaves to other Jews because they couldn't pay off a high interest rate loan. Nehemiah didn't just want them to stop doing what they were doing. He wanted them to repay what they had wrongly taken. He wanted them to make it right. Nehemiah 5:11 says, "Restore now to them, even this day, their lands, their vineyards, their olive groves, and their houses. Also 100th of the money, and the grain, the new wine, and the oil that you have charged them." Nehemiah must have spoken the truth in a kind and respectful way, because what he said caused the noblemen and rulers to respond positively. They told Nehemiah, "We will restore what we have taken, and we will not require them to pay any more interest." Part of Nehemiah's success in fixing the problem was probably because he was such a good example. Nehemiah told the rulers and nobles that he was not taking the money that he was entitled to. Because of Nehemiah's position, he had the right to make the people pay taxes to him, but he gave up that right so the Lord's work wouldn't be hindered. Not only did Nehemiah refuse to take tax money that he was entitled to, he was also a generous giver of what he had. As the king's cupbearer, Nehemiah received food from the king's provisions, and he gave it away in a great example of generosity. Every day, Nehemiah invited guests to his house, and they ate 1 ox, 6 sheep, and many fowls. Fowls are birds such as chickens or turkeys. Nehemiah was an example to the rulers and nobles of how a leader should be a generous person. As a result of Nehemiah's intervention, families were reunited, tax money was returned, and work on the wall was able to continue. The Jews again worked on the wall during the day with a weapon in one hand, and slept in their clothes at night with a weapon nearby, ready to fight. The wall was almost finished. Work on the wall continued, and with everyone working together, it wasn't long until the last stone was lifted into place. Some of the gates still did not have doors, but the walls were complete. The city would soon be safe, but without doors on all the gates, it was still vulnerable to attack.
Attack number 3. Pretend to make peace while planning violence.
When Sanballat and Tobiah and the other enemies heard that the walls were complete, they met together to try to stir up trouble again. It was now or never, because once the doors were installed, it would be too late to stop the work. This time the enemies sent a message to Nehemiah saying,
"Come and meet with us in one of the villages in the plain of Ono."
God gave Nehemiah discernment to know that they were not planning a friendly meeting. Rather, they were planning to harm or possibly kill Nehemiah. Nehemiah sent a message back,
"I am doing a great work and cannot come down. Why should the work stop just so I can meet with you?"
4 times they sent the same message, and 4 times Nehemiah sent the same reply.
Attack number 4. Tell lies about the good work being done to make it sound evil.
Sanballat sent the same message to Nehemiah a 5th time, along with a letter on which was written,
"It has been reported that the reason you and the Jews are building the wall is that you are planning to make yourself king over the city. Then you plan to revolt against the king of Persia. This is what will be reported back to the king if you do not come and meet with us."
Nehemiah read this message and recognized that it was a lie intended to frighten him. Nehemiah was not planning to revolt against the king of Persia. We know that after he was done rebuilding the walls, Nehemiah planned to return to Persia to be the king's cupbearer once again. But if these lies were reported back to King Artaxerxes, and he believed them, King Artaxerxes could perhaps send his army to Jerusalem to stop the work, or kill the workers. What should Nehemiah do? Should he leave the gates of Jerusalem unfinished? What do you think Nehemiah did? This is what Nehemiah did. He prayed,
"O God, strengthen my hands."
And the work on the city gates continued. Then Nehemiah sent a message back to Sanballat saying,
"Nothing like what you are saying is happening. You are making all this up in your imagination."
Nehemiah knew that Sanballat was trying to make him afraid so that he would not complete the work. But Nehemiah also knew that God had sent him to rebuild the walls and the gates of Jerusalem.
Attack number 5. Try to scare the leader into hiding.
When Sanballat read the message from Nehemiah, he knew that time was running out. The gates were almost complete. Some of the Jews inside the city were friendly to the enemies outside. One man, named Shemaiah, tried to pretend that he was a prophet and that God had sent him to warn Nehemiah. He told Nehemiah,
Go to the temple and hide, for your enemies will come in the night and try to kill you."
Nehemiah replied,
"Should a man such as I run away and hide myself? No, I will not go."
Nehemiah found out that Shemaiah had been hired by Sanballat and Tobiah to try to frighten and discredit Nehemiah. There was actually no threat to Nehemiah's life. Sanballat and Tobiah had tried every way they could to prevent the walls and gates of Jerusalem from being rebuilt. But after 52 long days of hard work, everything was finished. The walls had been rebuilt, and new strong doors hung on all the gates of Jerusalem. With the walls complete, there was no way that enemies could just walk into the city of Jerusalem and take whatever they wanted. How thankful the people were for Nehemiah. He had encouraged them and helped them rebuild the walls of their ruined city in just 52 days. Nehemiah and the workers did not give up, even though the task was very large and very hard. Sanballat and Tobiah had made 5 attempts to stop the work on the wall. Let's review the things they tried, because these are some of the same ways that Satan uses today to try to stop God's people from serving the Lord. Number 1, God's enemies made fun of those serving the Lord and made fun of the work they were doing. Number 2, God's enemies threatened violence against those serving the Lord. Number 3, God's enemies pretended to make peace while actually planning to attack. Number 4, God's enemies threatened to tell lies about those serving the Lord. Number 5, God's enemies tried to scare those serving the Lord into stopping their work. Don't be tricked by Satan's attempts to keep you from serving the Lord. God has already won the victory over Satan. There are many ways we can apply this lesson to our lives today. I thought of 2, maybe you can think of more. First, it's important to handle our money with the right heart attitude. Being a giver to the work of the Lord helps us always remember that God and His kingdom come first. The New Testament tells us our giving must be generous, freely given, and cheerful. Number 2, don't ever be afraid to do what's right. Nehemiah could have turned his back on the problems in Jerusalem, but God used him to help the rich people see that what they were doing was wrong. Nehemiah helped the poor people feed their families and keep their families together so they could continue to work on the wall. Because Nehemiah got involved in the money problem, the problem was solved and the wall was finished. All of those people involved in building the wall could say the words of Psalm 126:3. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad.